You are the love of my life.
So here I'm just showing you all the materials that I use to make my lace frontal wig, and I already have a video on how I customize my U part and V part wig. So if you want to check that out, check the description box below. But I use the exact same things. I'm just sewing a lace frontal onto here, and the steps are the same, but I am doing some things a bit differently just so it can lay super flat and more secure, since we are adding something else to the wig. And this is the lace frontal I will be using. My knots are already bleached, so if you want to see how I did that, check the description box below. And I'm pushing that frontal a little bit in front of that mesh cap, just so when I put the wig on, the hair won't be laying exactly on my hairline, but just a little bit forward. And I'm sticking that down with stick pins so that I make sure that everything is even on the left and right side and everything is flat for me to sew down. And right here, I'm just showing you all that I didn't sew on the elastic band, just so you can adjust it to make it tighter or looser. And also, you see how I flap that part up. That's kind of where the lace frontal comes to cover your edges up. So you don't want to sew that down onto the wig cap, because if you are planning on wearing your lace frontal in front of your hairline, you want to have this little flap right here to cover your ear, and you'll see a clearer visual of what I'm talking about towards the end of the video. But as you can see, I'm sticking the needle through the thread and wrapping the thread 3 times around the needle just to secure that lace frontal is not going anywhere. And I'm just sewing it down just like any other track. You just want to make sure you secure it so it's not going to be flapping up right there. And I'm just going to continue sewing it down by pulling the needle through the thread, kind of making it a loop just to make sure that it lays flat. And I'm doing this super close together just to make sure that it's not going to come up or have like any bubbles in between the lace. So yeah, just keep doing that. And as you can see, it's kind of like a track going across, and they're super close together. So just stick the needle through the thread, pull through, stick the needle through the thread, and pull through, and just keep doing that until you get to the other side. So now that I made it to the end of the other side, I'm going to stick the needle through, wrap the thread 3 times around the needle, and pull it through just to make sure the knot is secured, and I'm going to cut that. And right here, I'm just showing you the little flap by the ear again. You will cut the excess lace off later, but as you can see, that was not sewn down. Everything else is sewn down, and everything else is super flat. And that's exactly what we want. And now we're going to go on and continue to sew the tracks on. Okay, so now I'm going to sew the tracks on, and I did double the wefts at the bottom because I had 4 bundles and I wanted to try to fit as much hair as I can as possible. So I'm sewing it on starting from the lace frontal, and I'm going down where the nape area is and then connecting it to the other side of the lace frontal. And once again, I'm sticking that needle through the weft, wrapping the thread 3 times around the needle and pulling it through just to make sure it's secure. And I'm sewing it down the exact same way I did with the frontal, just not as close together. And I'm going to show you all where I went wrong with this lace frontal wig. This was my first time ever making a full wig, so I did make a mistake, but I was able to catch it and correct it, so I came back and showed you all the correct way. But this is okay, I did this part right, but when you get to a certain area on the cap, you want to start sewing in a different direction, just because when you flap the hair back from the lace frontal, you just want to make sure that everything lays super seamlessly and flat. And this is where I realized I went wrong. Eventually I had to take off all of these tracks and redo it because I came up too far behind the hump of the styrofoam head. So as you can see, I'm surpassing the hump behind the styrofoam head, and that was just too far up, and I was connecting the wefts to the back of the lace frontal, which caused the wig to lay super lumpy when I flapped the hair from the frontal back, because it just wasn't laying seamlessly. So I had to figure out a way and just take all of that hair off and redo it. But I should have just stopped and start going horizontally from track to track rather than from the frontal to the other side of the frontal. And I know it's pretty confusing right now, but you will see visually what I'm talking about later on in the video. So I know it's kind of confusing. I was confused myself, but you're going to see what I'm talking about. This is wrong. This is the wrong way. I'm going to show you all the right way in a couple of seconds. And I kept sewing like this until I got to the front of that lace frontal, and this was my result. I was like, something is off. This is not right. It's not laying flat. What is going on? I was literally flat ironing it. I sprayed water on it, pressed it with the flat iron again, and it was not laying flat for anything. I was like, no, what is going on? I look like I have an egghead. I look like Dolly Parton. No, this was unacceptable. So I figured out what I did wrong and I corrected it. And as you can see right here, this is all the hair that I had to cut off and redo, because when I put the hair on, it was just so bulky and was not laying or slaying, none of that. So I had to start over. So learn from my mistakes and do it the right way. And another mistake that I made was doubling the wefts when it was getting closer to the lace frontal. I advise you don't do that. I personally suggest that you start single wefting it, just so you ensure that it lays flat. And I'm just stressing this to you all because I do not want you all to take apart half of your wig and just have to do the same thing over when you could have done it right the first time. So I make the mistake and share it with you all, and you just do it the right way, because I know a lot of people do not have time to be remaking wigs and all of that. So yeah, I just want to show you that I'm not perfect. I do experience errors when I'm doing new stuff, so this was one of the errors. And as you can see, this was all of the hair that I removed, and this is the area where I'm going to start laying horizontally. And I'm demonstrating with my hand, showing you all right here how we're going to start laying those tracks. So side to side, we're going to just connect it to the other side of the track. You see how my hand is going? Yeah, like that. Not towards the frontal, on the tracks, like that. Okay? And I know I'm saying this over and over, but this is how you want to start laying it with the tracks. And this is how I was laying it, like this. Don't do it like that, but do it like this. Not like this, but like this. Okay? So where I previously went wrong was that I came up too far sewing the hair in a U rather than going horizontally. And just to make sure that your measurements are right, just make sure you start going straight across towards the back of the styrofoam head. So when you feel yourself going above the hump, that's when you know that you went too far. So as you can see, I sewed the hair about midway, and towards the middle of the hair, I'm going to start sewing from track to track rather than towards the frontal. Okay, so now that we are closer to the frontal, I'm leaving this little space that I'm going to fill in later. I just want to make sure that I get this track as flat and close as possible to the frontal. So I'm sticking this needle through the frontal into the track and wrapping the thread 3 times around the needle and pulling it through. And this is just making sure that it's secure and it's going to lay super flat. And I'm sewing down this track the exact same way I did with the frontal. So I'm looping the needle through the thread and I'm sewing it closely together, not as spacey as I did with the other tracks, just because I don't want it to move around. And when I flap that hair from the frontal back to cover this track, it's gonna cover it seamlessly and flawlessly. Okay, so once I reach the other side of the wig, I cut that thread off and then I'm just showing you all how flat it is and how close it is to that frontal. It is seamless because when I tried it on, it was perfect. I was so happy that I corrected this. It was awesome. So now just right here, I'm showing you all the space that I have, and I will be laying one more track down right there so you won't be seeing mesh cap when you actually put the wig on. Yes, so we're finally done with this wig making process. I was super pleased with this result and it was such a big difference. I'm so happy I was able to catch it before I put this video out and actually styled the hair, because it was laying nice when I had the hair wavy, but once I straightened it, it wasn't laying flat. So I'm happy that I experimented with it more before I put this video out for you all to watch. But as you can see, I'm flapping that lace frontal hair over that track that I connected to it, and it was so flat. I was so pleased and so happy with this result, and I'm so happy that I caught my mistake, because oh my gosh, I'm just so happy. As you can see, you cannot see not one track, not any thread. It's just flawless and seamless. I absolutely loved it. Alright, so once you're done making your wig the correct way, this is me back on the old way when I did it wrong, but this was not the problem. So I'm showing you all how to cut the mesh of the rest of the cap from the wig, just so when you put the hair on your head, you won't be seeing mesh, you'll be seeing, you know, your scalp and braids. So I'm just showing you all that the elastic still does work because we didn't sew on it. And now we're just going to get those scissors and cut along. And I was sure to not cut so close to the lace because I didn't want to unravel the thread. So I am cutting just a little bit above the actual lace where it's sewn down, just because I don't want to unravel that entire lace and mess up my entire wig. Now we're going to be cutting that excess lace from the hair, and I'm just going to cut straight across, and then I will make any adjustments if I want to cut off more lace, because it's better to cut off less lace and then go back and, you know, tweak it, because once you cut off too much you can't go back. But you know, if you don't cut off too much, you can always tweak it and adjust it how you want it to look on your head. So I just went straight across and also by the ear area, and then if I saw some extra lace that I wanted to cut off, I just cut that off after. So now I'm going to sew an elastic band onto my wig just so that it lays super snug, because I did not sew this wig down or glue it. So this was from Walmart and it was like $2, and it comes with a lot of elastic, and you won't even use half of this. But all I did was measure my ear from ear to ear, and I stretched it super tight just because I can take the, you know, snugness of the elastic on my head. So I did it as tight as I can and connect that from the flaps on the lace frontal, and I just sewed that down. Okay, so I just want you all to be aware that I am sewing the elastic band onto the flaps that I did not sew onto the cap that I showed you all in the beginning. And this was because I did wear this wig behind my ears, so I did sort of have some leave out, and it wasn't a full lace frontal wig where none of my edges were showing. I did have some hair that was visible. But if you are wearing this as a full lace frontal, do not sew your elastic band onto the ear flap part, because if you are wearing it like that, it's gonna interrupt with it covering your edges. So just make sure that if you are wearing it as a full frontal wig, sew the elastic band a little bit behind that flap, just so that flap can cover your edges in front of your ear. Does that make sense? I tried to make that as clear as possible. And once you're done sewing that other side down, this is how your wig should look. I thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to stay tuned for my next video on how I install and style this wig. And check out my previous video on how I customize this lace frontal. So I'll see you all later.